I've been looking forward to this one. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban! Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was published July 8th, 1999. It is the third book in the series and takes place the following year after Chamber of Secrets. I noticed there were a few typos in the edition that I read as well, but they weren't as noticeable as the ones in Chamber of Secrets. Nothing too serious, though. I actually have a funny story about this book. You see, my parents didn't want me to read book 3 until I was 10 years old, but 9-year-old me just couldn't wait. So I grabbed the book off the shelf and decided to read it myself. My parents weren't even mad when they saw me reading it. I don't remember how long it took me to finish it, but I did. And now we return to Summer with the Dursleys. This particular one is going to be a bit interesting since Vernon's sister Marge is coming to visit. Now, she doesn't know about Harry being a wizard, and the Dursleys would like to keep it that way, to the point where Harry has to do all his homework in secret. Well, Harry tries to make himself scarce during the visit, but Marge has always enjoyed riling Harry up, and well, he's riled up to the point where his magic gets out of control and Marge is blown up like a balloon. The now very angry Harry grabs his things and leaves the house. Well, Harry is by himself now, and to make matters worse, he's not able to go to the wizard village of Hogsmeade this year since Harry had technically broke his end of the bargain with Vernon. You see, Harry needed a form signed from a parent or guardian in order to go there, and now he's not going to be able to. Now, at this point in the story, and also throughout the rest of the story, Harry keeps seeing a large black dog. We'll get back to that later. Anyways, Harry gets picked up by the night bus and takes it to the Leaky Cauldron. At the Leaky Cauldron, he officially meets the Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. Now, while Harry did perform magic at home, it was an out-of-control outburst, so Fudge is being a little more lenient with him. Harry is not expelled! Yay! But we also have another problem. Fudge tells Harry that a convicted murderer by the name of Sirius Black has escaped Azkaban, the wizard prison. Sirius Black is also said to be one of Voldemort's followers. And well, that's not good. He's after Harry! Well, there's not much Harry can do right now other than stay at the Leaky Cauldron and make occasional visits to Diagon Alley to stock up on school supplies. He even gets to take a trip with Ron and Hermione one day. On this particular day, Hermione purchases a cat by the name of Crookshanks. Now, Ron already has a bad impression of Crookshanks since he attacked him in the shop. Also, it seems Crookshanks keeps trying to grab Scabbers. Well, after a warning from Arthur about not going after Sirius, it's time for Harry and friends to go to school. However, the trip to school isn't as great as it usually is. First of all, they have to share a compartment with the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Professor Remus Lupin. Second of all, we find out why Azkaban is such a horrible place to be. Dementors. These beings can suck out your soul, and they feed off of happy memories and force people to relive their worst memories. Since poor Harry here has literally seen his parents die right in front of him as a baby, being around Dementors affects him greatly to the point where he passes out. And, well, yes, the Dementors do a sweep of the train, and poor Harry has passed out. Thankfully, Lupin is here with chocolate to help Harry feel better. Anyways, now Harry and friends make it to school, but it seems Malfoy heard about Harry's incident on the train and thinks it's the funniest thing ever. He proceeds to mock Harry throughout the story, and it doesn't help that the Dementors are stationed around the school. Alright, let's have some good news. Hagrid is now the teacher for care of magical creatures. Yay! Let's see how the first lesson goes. Yeah, it doesn't go the best. So Hagrid decides to introduce the students to hippogriffs, and they look like this creature you're seeing on the screen. And he's also on the book cover. They are magnificent creatures that get offended very easily, so you have to approach them just right in order for them to trust you. Harry does manage to gain the trust of Buckbeak, one of the hippogriffs, but when Hagrid lets the students interact with the hippogriffs, Malfoy decides to provoke the hippogriff, thinking it harmless. Well, Buckbeak slashes Malfoy's arm with his talons, and Malfoy, being extremely overdramatic, calls his dad to have Hagrid fired. But we'll come back to that in a minute since the process takes a while. Now it's time for Harry and friends to go to divination, where we meet Professor Trelawney. Her first assignment to the kids is they must read their tea leaves. When Professor Trelawney takes a look at Harry's leaves, she sees that, yes, he has a powerful enemy, but she also sees the Grim. The Grim is a type of dog. In English and Nordic folklore, it is said that a church Grim protects the churchyard from those who would defile it. The church Grim usually takes the form of a large black dog. However, in the case of this lesson, the Grim is an omen of death. We later learn from Professor McGonagall that Professor Trelawney has predicted a student will die every single year. It just so happened to be Harry's turn. Now, let's see how Professor Lupin teaches Defense Against the Dark Arts. He's actually quite a good teacher, and has the students learn how to defend themselves against a boggart. Well, all of them except Harry, since he thought the boggart would turn into Voldemort, even though for Harry it actually turns into a Dementor. Well, we can't all have the best news. Sirius Black has broken into Hogwarts. Harry also loses his first Quidditch match since the Dementors decide to go to the stadium. Dumbledore was not pleased. And to make matters worse, Harry's Nimbus 2000 was blown right to the Whomping Willow and was completely destroyed. Now, as the school year has progressed, the 3rd to 7th year students have been allowed to go to Hogsmeade on weekends to hang out. Harry hasn't been able to since his form wasn't signed. On one particular weekend, Fred and George decide to give Harry the Marauders map. They had stolen it from Filch's office during their first year. The map itself is a map of the school that shows the people in it and the secret passages all throughout the school. The makers of this map are Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. Fred and George point Harry to the secret passages leading to Hogsmeade so he can join his friends. Harry does just that. He goes to Hogsmeade and spends some time with Ron and Hermione. However, some of the teachers have decided to visit the Three Broomsticks for a bit. Luckily, Ron and Hermione were fast enough to shove Harry under the table. The teachers are discussing Sirius Black, and this is where Harry learns that Sirius was his father's best friend. And he's Harry's godfather. The story goes that the Potters knew Voldemort was after them and entrusted Sirius to keep their location a secret. However, Sirius didn't keep the secret. He betrayed them to Voldemort. Well, now it seems Harry has a reason to track down Sirius. But he can't worry about that now. He has other things to worry about at the moment, like helping Hagrid defend Buckbeak. Also, the upcoming Quidditch match against Ravenclaw. The problem is, Harry doesn't have a broom. Well, he does get one. A really good one called a Firebolt. But because Hermione thinks it's from Sirius Black and it's been jinxed, she has Professor McGonagall take it to get inspected. Harry and Ron are currently mad at Hermione because of this. Ron is even more mad because Hermione keeps defending her cat despite him trying to attack Scabbers. It doesn't help that it seems Crookshanks ended up killing Scabbers in the end. Now, there is another problem, though. The Dementors. Now, throughout the story, Harry doesn't use the invisibility cloak often since the Dementors can see through it. He is that scared of them. So Harry asks Professor Lupin for some help in defending against them. Professor Lupin teaches him the Patronus Charm. Well, this does come in handy during the Quidditch match, except that the Dementors who were there were actually Malfoy and his pals in disguise. Also, this will be important much later, but this match is where Harry meets Cho Chang, the Ravenclaw team's seeker. Well, we can't have all the good news in the world for Harry here, as he's caught on his way back from Hogsmeade after deciding to scare Malfoy since he's been taunting Ron about Hagrid likely losing Buckbeak. Professor Snape is not pleased and ends up finding the Marauders map in Harry's possession. Snape has Lupin look at it, but Lupin just confiscates it. We'll come back to that in a minute. Harry ends up winning the Quidditch final, and final exams have begun. However, not all is well since Buckbeak is due to be executed. Harry, Ron, and Hermione go over to be with Hagrid, but he kicks them out since they can't be seen by the Ministry people coming by. There is a little bit of good news, though. Scabbers is alive. He was hiding out at Hagrid's. Although, once Harry and his friends leave Hagrid's, they're attacked by the black dog that Harry keeps seeing. The dog drags Ron into a secret passage inside the Whomping Willow. Crookshanks leads Harry and Hermione through the passage right into the Shrieking Shack. Here it is revealed that Sirius Black is an animagus, a wizard who can transform into an animal. Now, Harry is naturally upset at seeing Sirius and ends up fighting him. Lupin ends up making it in time to save the day, except... what is this? Allow me to explain. You see, many years ago, a young Remus Lupin had been bit by a werewolf. Since werewolves aren't trusted in the wizarding world, he wasn't able to go to school until Dumbledore became headmaster. Remus had to go to the Shrieking Shack every month during the full moon so he wouldn't hurt anybody. But he was alone. He did have friends at school, though. Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and James Potter. The friends discovered Remus's secret and decided to each become animagi in order to be with Remus while he was a wolf. You see, werewolves will only hurt people, not animals. And here we also learn that Scabbers isn't actually a rat, but an animagus by the name of Peter Pettigrew. It turns out that Sirius had Peter be the Potter's secret keeper instead while spreading the word that he himself was the secret keeper. That way Voldemort would be thrown off. But they didn't know that Peter was the real spy for Voldemort. He'd faked his death and framed Sirius. Now, Snape had actually popped in to turn in Sirius, but was knocked out by Harry and friends. Remus and Sirius reveal Peter for who he is. They tried to kill Peter, but Harry stops them, not wanting his father's best friends to turn into murderers. They plan to give Peter to the Dementors, but as they exit, it is a full moon out, and Remus didn't take his potion. Remus transforms into a wolf, which allows Peter to escape. Sirius saves Harry and friends, but Harry goes back to help Sirius. It seems the Dementors have finally caught up to Sirius. You see, the dementors were permitted to perform a kiss on Sirius, which is how his soul will be removed. However, because Harry was trying to save Sirius, the dementors were about to perform the kiss on him. Luckily, they are both saved by a mysterious someone who cast a powerful Patronus. Well, it seems all their effort was for naught, since Snape woke up, took everyone back to the castle, and told the minister that Harry and friends were bewitched by Sirius. It seems there's nothing they could do to help Sirius now that the dementors have been sent his way. But what is this? This is the secret to how Hermione's been able to deal with her crazy schedule. A time turner. This will allow the user to travel through time, but they cannot be seen. Dumbledore, believing Sirius and Harry, hints to Hermione that she should use it, and she and Harry travel back in time. They end up saving Buckbeak from his execution. Harry finds out that he was the one who cast that powerful Patronus to save his life, and they all save Sirius. Sirius and Buckbeak fly away to safety. Harry and Hermione make it back to where they were just in time. Now, everybody else isn't sure how Buckbeak or Sirius escaped, but they did. Harry does get a letter from Sirius saying that he has made it to somewhere safe, and gives him a signed form saying that he can visit Hogsmeade. Oh, don't worry, Dumbledore will be the one looking at it. Sirius also admits that he had been following Harry in his dog form and apologized for freaking him out. He was also the one who sent Harry that firebolt. Oh, and Sirius says that Ron can keep the little owl he used to send the letter. Well, we'll come back on Saturday to see what Harry and friends are up to in year 4, but for now, let's analyze. Where to begin? Like Chamber of Secrets, we learn a bit more about the wizarding world here. For example, we learn how many people don't trust werewolves, despite Remus being a good guy. We also learn that there is in fact a department of the Ministry that specializes in putting dangerous magical creatures down, and we also learn about the Time Turners. I want to talk a little bit about the Time Turner. Hermione used it to get to all of her classes and deal with her crazy schedule. Yet she learned the hard way that this was not healthy for her. This is why she dropped 2 of her classes and gave the Time Turner back to Professor McGonagall. There is such a thing as too much schoolwork. Besides, it's never safe to meddle around with time. Now there's one thing I would like to talk about as well, the Patronus. A Patronus can take the form of an animal. Harry's Patronus was a stag. Now this is important because James Potter's animal form was a stag. Harry was told that his father lives on through him. The dead may be gone, but we will always remember them in our hearts. Now I really want to talk about Sirius. He is my favorite character in the whole series. He had been through a horrible experience, but managed to get through it all because he knew he was innocent. Although he didn't really help his case through some of his actions, but he was able to convince Harry of his innocence, and that was what mattered to him most. Overall, I still really like this book, and I enjoyed reading it again. While it is larger than the previous 2 books, and it got a bit slow in some sections, it's still a great story. I'd recommend this book for ages 10 and up, mostly for the slow bits and for the parts that might be a bit hard to understand. Now, the 3rd movie. I believe this is where the movies started to take a few more liberties from the books. The themes still remained the same in the movie, but a lot of stuff was cut out that helped the context immensely. We could see what was going on, but in some cases we didn't understand why. It feels like the directors just assumed we'd all read the books, and at the time, most people did. In my honest opinion, it's a decent adaptation since it still kept the same themes, but the book definitely helps provide more context. This is my favorite book in the series, and I hope all of you get to enjoy it as well. Tune in this Saturday where things start to pick up speed during Harry's 4th year. Happy reading!